Welcome to NHL Quick Hits. I'm David Crosby here with Steele Roden, and we're going to look at the Central Division midway through the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Things were looking really bleak for Nashville after losing the first two to Carolina by a combined score of 8-2, but Matt Duchene broke a 4-4 tie in double overtime to give the Predators their first win of the series on Friday. Steele, I want to discuss a pair of interesting coaching decisions in this series. Nashville head coach John Hynes took both Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene off the power play entirely in Game 3, and they both responded with even-strength goals. Hynes is also relying heavily on his best players. Roman Josi has led his team in ice time in all three games, including nearly 37 minutes in Game 3. Juuse Saros has faced 123 shots in just 3 games. Now, for a coach that was on the hot seat at midseason, I think he's been pulling all the right strings in this series. And of course, with that impressive Game 3 win, has the coach and the team's performance made you rethink their chances in this series?
No, they haven't changed my mind whatsoever. Carolina's just been so dominant. They dominated the entire series, in my opinion. Even losing Game 3, I think they were just so powerful. It's so much strength up front. Carolina's just too strong. Sebastian Aho, Pesci's been great. Jordan Staal's leading by example as captain, as he should be. And then Alex Nedeljkovic has just been an absolute stud for the Carolina Hurricanes in net. So even with that Game 3 loss going into overtime, I just don't think this is going to change anything. I had the Carolina Hurricanes winning in 4. I thought they were going to sweep. I think they get it in 5 now.
Well, on the other bench, head coach Rod Brind'Amour started rookie goaltender Alex Nedeljkovic, who you mentioned. He has been absolutely fantastic. Now, were you a little bit surprised at that choice at the start of the series? And do you think they stick with him after that Game 3 loss, or maybe look towards Peter Mrazek?
Well, no, I was not surprised that Brind'Amour wanted to start with Alex Nedeljkovic to start this postseason against the Nashville Predators. If you just look at his numbers and his stats in the regular season, it proves why he was the number one goalie going into the postseason, even though we all know how great Peter Mrazek is. He was 15-5-2 in the regular season. He had a lot to do with the Carolina Hurricanes being the top-seeded team in that division. So, he made 22 saves in his first game. He stopped all 32 in Game 2. He stopped 49 in Game 3. So his save percentages were just insane for all 3 games. To me, I think on that Duchene goal, I think Nedeljkovic made a little bit of a bad judgment call going for the poke check. I think if he just stayed in his net, his defense was coming on Duchene's tail. So I think if he just stayed in his net and didn't go for the poke check, he wouldn't have given up the top corner so easily. And that's what Duchene is so well known for, is his hands up close and in front of the net. So I think Brind'Amour stays with Nedeljkovic. I would stay with Nedeljkovic, but you still have a couple of great goalies that he can work with. Peter Mrazek, James Reimer, whoever you want to go with. I would feel comfortable with any 3 of those guys. But Nedeljkovic has played a really spectacular series so far, and I would keep going with him.
Well, based on those Ned chants from the Carolina crowd, I think they would definitely agree with you. They'd like to see him in net there again in Game 4. Let's move over to the Battle of Florida. This series has been a lot more lopsided than many people, me included, expected. Tampa Bay has 19 goals in 4 games. Is the Panthers' goaltending more to blame here, or is the Lightning's offense just that potent?
It's both. And if anyone says otherwise, they're just simply wrong. It's got to be both, because you get Kucherov and Stamkos back, and being $17 million over the salary cap going into the postseason is just insane. And I don't know how Tampa pulled this off, but once you get Kucherov, once you get Stamkos back in the lineup, it just changes the atmosphere. It changes the energy for this player, because the Tampa Bay Lightning were not playing great hockey towards the end of the regular season. They just weren't. Vasilevsky wasn't on his game. A lot of their forwards and their top guys weren't on their game. And we talked about how Hedman was dealing with that injury. So I was curious to see how they were going to manage his time on ice. But, getting Stamkos and Kucherov back in the lineup, it changes their power play. It changes their dynamic on the first and second line. So just having those guys back in the game, it's always going to be a great energy boost for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But we've talked about how bad Bobrovsky's been since he's landed in Florida, and he's just continuing to prove that he's still this bad in the postseason. I think they should have gone with Drieger in Game 1. and they didn't want to. So the goalies have definitely not been the best of their abilities, and it has a lot to do with Kucherov and Stamkos being back in the lineup because they're just so dominating.
I mean, Kucherov has almost no rest. It's almost impossible that a guy cannot play a single game in the regular season and look as dominant as he has. Now, on the flip side of that, we don't really know how healthy Kucherov is going to be after what happened at the end of Game 4. Many coaches across the league have complained about the refereeing, and Lightning head coach John Cooper was extremely unhappy after Tampa's 6-2 win in Game 4. The teams combined for 92 penalty minutes. Now, this was far from the only game that ended with some cheap shots. I'm not sure if you watched till the end of the Leafs and Montreal game as well on Saturday night, but that got a little rough and dirty there at the end too. But Anthony Duclair's slash on Nikita Kucherov's leg sent the Tampa Star to the dressing room. It was clearly deliberate. It was way outside of the play and a prime example of what has gone wrong this postseason. So do you think the refs and the league need to do a better job of getting control of these games, especially in late game blowouts?
I might be the only one that thinks this, but I truly believe that the refs have done a really good job so far in the playoffs. And if you think about it, yes, there's always going to be sometimes bad penalty calls that shouldn't be called whatsoever. And just the teams are always going to be upset no matter what. That's just how the game's played nowadays. Someone's always going to be upset no matter what you do. But with all things considered, I think the refs have done a really good job in how these series have been playing out. We all knew going into this Tampa and Florida series that there was bad blood, and we saw it in the last 2 games of the regular season. So for the most part, I think they've done a really good job. There's only 4 of the referees out there. There's 10 players. It's going to be hard to control at times when there's bad blood and emotions and high intensity like this in these games. And the whole Duclair slash, that's just uncalled for. He needs to get some punishment for that because it's deliberate. It's right behind the knee or on the kneecap where there's no padding there. It's intent to injure. So I think Duclair is I think he's definitely going to get a couple of games for this. It might not even matter for him because they're on the ropes like the Minnesota Wild too. They're down 3-1. They're going to have to do something. But for the most part, I feel like the refs have done the best job that they can. Obviously, they're going to get some of the calls wrong, but that's what happens nowadays. And I think it's just so hard to control when there's only 4 of you and there's 10 players. So they're trying to do the best they can, but not everyone's going to agree with them.
I mean, your point about the high emotions is bang on too. Not only is it the playoffs, but these teams have played each other 10 times each throughout the regular season. When you see the same team 14, 15 plus times in one season, things can probably escalate a little bit quicker than they would in a normal season. Now, Florida and Nashville, they simply look outgunned and outmatched in their series, and they will need to do something special to stop their seasons from ending soon. That's going to do it, though, for today's episode. On behalf of Steel Road, and I'm David Crosby, and thanks for tuning in to NHL Quick Hits.